AppNexus, I feel like I want to do my own Q&A as well, because everybody else is. How many people here know what we do? Good. Oh, okay. All right, good. So we have been around for about 6 years. AppNexus and its founders are largely credited with effectively bringing to market the first real-time technology, and therefore largely creating this problem that we have today. As a result, we offer the full suite. You can pretty much do anything you'd like with us. But today I want to focus on, based on the fact we're a buy-side audience, what does a DSP do? So as buyers, how would that fit into the way that you see things? After that, a little bit of an understanding about, I want to go into business models a little bit, not so much on the financial side or on how we deal with our clients, but again, how can you start to delineate between what technology providers should or could do, and again, how can you try to make sense of the difference between features, services and technology and so on. All right, good. Little case study at the end to give you guys an idea of how this can work in practice. So something that my marketing guy likes to put in here, and I thought was quite relevant. Lots of people consider media as paid, owned and earned. I'm sure that's a figure of speech, a terminology that you guys have heard lots of times. And if you look back at social, if you look, again, in terms of search, a lot of these things were real time already. You can send tweets, you can put links up on Facebook, and again, you can get responses and change things according to what's happening, the dynamics of what's going on around you, the weather, I don't know, sports results, whatever. This is a great example of that. You guys have probably all seen this from the Super Bowl. It's been written about, obviously it's won a whole ton of awards, but to practitioners in real-time advertising who use creative executions all the time, this is pretty basic. I mean, the concept of serving something like this when the lights go out in the Super Bowl is effectively kind of level one in terms of how DSPs and real-time buyers would actually use and engage with the technologies that they've got at their fingertips. So I think what's now happened is you can start to regard paid media in the same way. Again, very much speaking to that concept of being agile. Okay, so I've got my own diagram here, and the idea is to try and bring this, again, much more on a functional level. This is broadly speaking a real-time advertising ecosystem. Obviously, you're going to have buyers behind this. You're going to have sellers at the other side. We always think about things from the ad call, when a page is loaded, an ad call is made, what subsequently happens, what decisions occur, and again, obviously, what functionality is the technology legitimately giving you. So forgetting about the sell side for the time being and looking at the buy side, if you are contracting a DSP, again like ours, our obligations, certainly the first 4, 5, 6 obligations, are incredibly basic. Our number one obligation is connectivity. We are obliged to, not obliged to, but you may choose an alternative if we don't, connect you to the inventory that's available. And what that means is we accept incoming bid requests from sellers who will use platforms like this. They might do it via their ad server, like a DoubleClick. They might do it via an SSP who sends out external bid requests on their behalf. There's complexities around that because a lot of SSPs will run their own auction first. And again, we can come into to why that's potentially an issue for sellers, and again, why transparency can then subsequently become compromised. But the objective of the DSP is to listen to what's coming in. That's number one. And to put that into context, globally today, we listen to about 110 billion impressions a day. If you log into AppNexus, it's not filtered by country, it's totally global. That's how many impressions you could theoretically buy. Anyone who's got the money to buy that many impressions is probably in the wrong job. But that would be your opportunity. Probably the second thing would be some sort of user interface. Again, I know it sounds basic and ridiculous, but these are our obligations as a technology provider. We've got to be able to give you something that's easy to use. You can load your tags in correctly. We've got to give you an infrastructure that can connect to the rest of your business. So we have completely open APIs as a DSP provider, whereas a lot of other guys would look at that in a slightly different way. Optimization is probably something else that's key. Now again, in our case, we provide optimization, but because of the way that we're set up, and I can talk about this again in a little bit more detail, we make our optimization completely transparent. Because now, if you take the UK as an example, programmatic is something like 400 or 500 million. The performance market, or DR, display in this country is probably something like 900 million, $1 billion. That means programmatic is, what, give or take half of performance already. So that means you can't just participate and expect to win. You can't just start buying things in real time and expect everything's going to work. You might want to toggle the optimization to suit your client. You might all be bidding on the same thing. But we provide basic optimization to make sure that in effectively algebraic format, it's going to make decisions on your behalf of where to place the advertising. There are operational benefits too, and I think probably the number one advantage of using a DSP is the fact you can now use your data. Ultimately, you've been able to do that for some time in other parts of the market, search obviously being one of the most obvious. But now that DSPs can aggregate the media on one side and now allow you as a buyer to use yours or your customer's data on the other side, it becomes extremely powerful. So now obviously based on offers that you've got coming out, based on changes in the weather, based on any signal whatsoever that you're capable of bringing into the system, my favorite probably would be in the Netherlands. It's pretty much an incubator for anything cool and programmatic. Casper will back me up on this. Is that they were using signals from digital TV. So they were trying to suck in frequency of words used. And in this case, the word Mercedes popped up lots of times. Then they were retargeting Mercedes customers, trying to get them to generate Facebook likes on their tablet while they were watching TV. It sounds advanced, but really it's quite straightforward. You can use your data, and then you can aggregate media and buy whatever you want on the other side. So these are our responsibilities. I think ideally that gives everybody a pretty good understanding, I'm hoping. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So behind this then, all I really wanted to do was show you effectively how we break down what the roles or the different functions of the technology providers would be behind this. And the reason I was doing this is because I think somebody mentioned it earlier, DSPs, SSPs, exchanges, ad servers, it's become a little bit confusing in terms of what you can expect from them and also what they are going to legitimately do and what kind of other business models they have or how they work. As a result, we've broken things down into three. I hope you find it useful. We do too. Infrastructure is the first. What that means is most people, in basic terms, if you go back 10 years, were looking for an ad server. If they had an agency and they wanted to serve things digitally, they probably signed a deal with DFA, and now they can serve their ads. Again, all of the services that we spoke about before would effectively comprise infrastructure. Now, the reason we break that down is because in programmatic, there are also a lot of features. And this is probably one of my favorites because in a lot of cases, technology providers will make these decisions for you. They will say, here is our DSP functionality. Oh, and by the way, we've already taken care of third-party data. We've already taken care of viewability. We've already taken care of really nice dashboards. We've already taken care of, and all of these features are native to the DSP. Now that's fine, but the issue that we see with that, and again, I've got some airtime, so I think I'm perfectly entitled to try and do a little bit of selling, is that everybody needs to be different. Last time I looked, most people here from a different agency. Presumably you guys don't pitch in the same way. You don't have exactly the same business model. You don't have exactly the same offering to customers. So if you sign a deal with a particular technology provider and everything is native, then guess what? Your campaigns are going to look just like everybody else's. And that's actually a problem. And I think when you start to look at the penetration that programmatic has, and then the role that technology can actually help you with, and you've got choices, and features is really where some of the biggest points of differentiation can start to occur. So in our case, we have, as I mentioned, completely open APIs, and you can integrate whichever viewability partners you want. You can download different dashboard providers if you want to. And again, you can start to build your own version of what a demand-side platform should look like. So to that end, small technicality, we would never call ourselves a DSP. We provide the technology so that our customers can build their own DSP. It's a technicality. I can see him laughing. Okay, good. So the second one, that's features. And the third one, which is probably the most important to the folks in this room, is service. Now, this is kind of a funny one, and I might get mildly controversial at the end here. I'm prepared to be shot down. Services, in my opinion, is the concept of dealing with customers and the actual actions of buying and selling. Now, there's lots of tech guys in the market who confuse this, and the lines now are completely blurred between these three things. So as an agency, you're thinking, well, these technologies exist. This is great. I'll go and sign a deal with this DSP. I'm going to get great performance. Fantastic. And your clients, they're saying, well, hang about. I'm running a concurrent, a competitive pitch here, and the other guy's deck looks exactly the same as yours. His results are exactly the same as yours. So again, you can either differentiate at this level, or you could just choose to differentiate here. You might have a better relationship with that guy. You might know him better. You might charge less. I don't know. You might push more volume through so you get a better deal with your technology. But the important thing is that these are three very different parts of the market. And technology providers are blurring the edges. I said I'd get controversial, I may as well. The part of the way that we see this is because infrastructure costs as a technology provider are exponential. To give you an idea of that, this is very broad. It costs about $1 to listen to an impression. And as I said earlier, there's about 100 to 110 billion a day. So anyone who's good at maths will realize you're into 6 figures per day just to be live. And you can't do what's called throttle inventory because then your customer all of a sudden can't buy, I don't know, Facebook, or they can't buy OpenX, whatever inventory your customer wants to access. So for that reason, the infrastructure costs are immense. Now, we see ourselves, and I really like the stock market example, we are effectively the stock exchange. That's the way we see ourselves. We don't do any buying and selling. We stop here. And so for that reason, our role is uptime. And also, last time people looked, I'm sure you'll realize the stock market itself takes a very small percentage. So it relies on scale. Whereas technology providers that can't necessarily get the scale they need will start to put native features in, or more importantly, start to do some buying and selling on behalf of their clients, Because obviously then they could take the margin that the buyers and sellers should be creating for themselves. That's because they've got exponential costs at the other end that they need to cover. So that is why, by the way, I'm not suggesting anybody else does this. I've certainly seen these business models in the past, but there is a fine line. And I think when you make these sort of decisions, or again, you start to understand how to engage with these kind of companies, the reason I put this up is to give you a framework of how you might be able to interrogate them or think about the sort of things that you might want to be able to ask. Okay, maybe it's not that controversial. Wonderful. Okay, good. So finally, quick case study. Based on the fact that it's the greenhouse for everything cool that happens, I thought I'd use one from the Netherlands. We have a customer there called Blue Mango, and they were running a campaign for Vodafone. I think what's good about this campaign is it just isolates and shows you how just getting the basics right and using DSPs and programmatic for what it's designed for can get you really, really good results. So in this case, roaming campaign for Vodafone. They were trying to upsell customers who are about to go on holiday and get them to take out the roaming package. I don't know about you guys, I pretty much always forget to do that until you get something at the airport. So this was an upsell, and they wanted to target folks who were leaving the country or who had already left the country and who were Vodafone customers. Now, as a bunch of planner buyers, and again, please shoot me down if I'm wrong about this, that's theoretically quite hard to do if you were doing this manually. That's quite a difficult concept to execute. But with programmatic, and what I've just talked about before, these guys were able to target people who were their customers. They were Vodafone customers based on the exact location they were in at that exact moment, and then optimize across the ones that were interacting with the ad or not. So it was fairly obvious. Location, based on mobile and based on the GPS signal that comes back to the DSP. You can get folks that were in the airport already, in Schiphol. They could get folks who were looking at .nl inventory on their mobile from abroad, hence targeting Dutch people, not in the Netherlands. And also then make sure that they could get the scale that they were looking for. So this is what I was talking about before in terms of the volumes that we can ingest. The mobile figures, by the way, are around, I don't know, 10, 11 billion a day. That's what we would see. So mobile is really starting to get up there in terms of inventory volumes. And as you can imagine, they use dynamic creative. This is obviously really important. You guys have probably come across this concept lots of times. Criteo do this a lot. This is a really big part of their business model. But again, with DSPs, you can load whichever one in that you would like to. You can serve it according to the data that particular impression has. Switch creatives all the time. You can optimize across the creatives in real time as well. Okay, good. And the results, as you would expect, were significant. I think most people tend to find this when you switch to programmatic buying, that the results increase exponentially. But the point that Casper made earlier is a really good one. The technology can't pitch this concept to your client. No way. The technology can't explain this. It can't really plan this. All that the DSP can legitimately do is execute against what you've just told it to do. It can then start to improve, and it can learn, and it can get better and better and better and better, but it's never going to deal with your customer. It's never going to understand what to do with a campaign that it's never run before. It doesn't know. In most cases, the system doesn't know what to do with an impression that it's never seen before. So again, this is why scale and experience are so important, and people to ultimately interpret what's happening so that they can sell these sort of things back in.